Namaste, everyone. I welcome you all to today's Yes Talk. The title today is Slow Down and Smell the Roses. The speaker with us today is Miss Richa Sharma, who is a counseling psychologist and a musician with a decade long experience in the fields of mental wellness, parenting, education, and meditation. She holds postgraduate degrees in applied psychology and English literature and a certification in music therapy. Richa is also trained in Indian classical music and features as a voice artist and composer in numerous creative projects in collaboration with global artists. Welcome, Richa. It's lovely having you again with a lovely topic indeed. So, looking forward to this beautiful session. Over to you.
Thank you, Arunima, for inviting me. Hello, everyone. Namaste. Good evening. As you can see that winters have arrived, and you can very well make this out in my voice as well. So it's a very apt topic today that I would like to share with all of you. Arunima, just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, yeah.
Yes? Okay. Yeah, so the topic is slow down and smell the roses. And it sounds very flowery and like a metaphor, but this is a great philosophy and approach to embrace in life. And it took me a lot of years to begin to realize how valuable and important this philosophy of slowing down is. And as we proceed, as we move ahead, I will be sharing some of my personal experiences as well, and some beautiful things that I learned as I researched and explored this topic. So, what we're going to discuss today, in not exactly the same order, but these are few of the themes that we'll be talking about today. We'll understand the background of what our ancestors did with respect to slowing down. We'll also take a look at the meaning. What do we mean by slowing down? What are the benefits when we slow down? How does it help us? What are the signs that can tell us that, hey, it's high time you need to slow down? And what happens if you do not slow down and if you just keep going in that same speed constantly? And towards the end, I have a small toolkit for you, a small tips and suggestions and resources for you that you can make use of. So, few signs that tell us we need to slow down. Now, when I share this aspect with all of you, I have a personal experience to share. In different points of time in my life, I have experienced there were moments when I would forget the keys of my house or probably, lose it at some random place and I would not remember where I kept it. Okay. There would be moments when I, with the best of my intention, I would keep something on the stove and it would spill, and that would constantly happen. There would be times when, I discovered that I am getting very late for appointments, things are unplanned. I forgot carrying important papers with me. Okay. And the natural response is to, shift the blame. So the natural response would be to become a victim and say, why is this happening with me? Why are all the bad things happening with me? Today my luck is bad. Probably I saw somebody else's face. I'm being cursed. Some other people don't want me to succeed. So pushing our own onus, our ownership on external factors. And very recently, when last time I encountered all of these, I sat down and took a pause. I actually slowed down and took a pause to reflect, what is it that I need to learn? What is it that I'm not doing right? And That's when I actually started reading a lot more about this aspect. I explored the um, signs of burnout, exhaustion, overwhelm. And I realized that, when we are feeling burnout, when we are feeling overwhelmed, when things are not going right, it's perhaps the universe's way of telling us to, it's time you need to slow down. And I'm a firm believer in this, that we get signs and cues from the universe through our body. Whenever there is sign that something is not working out, it's a good moment to sit and reflect and explore, what is my body trying to tell me, or what are my emotions trying to tell me, or what is a higher source of power trying to indicate to me. Okay, so if you are feeling burnout, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel you do not have time for anything, perhaps it's time you might need to slow down. Let us encounter a few more um, signs that might tell you need to slow down. And if you are checking a lot on this list, perhaps it's a good reminder for you to slow down. So what are some of these? You're always getting late to appointments. You're not turning up on time. You lose things a lot. You keep things at a place and you do not remember where you kept it. Okay, you're not getting enough sleep. Or when you sleep, but when you get up in the morning, you do not feel nourished enough. You keep getting sick, or you keep getting having certain physical symptoms repeatedly despite taking medications. Okay, you do not remember when was the last time you actually sat properly and ate a meal. You'll find lots of people have a grab and go meal because of their jobs, because of their work, because of some compulsions. So if this happens on a persistent basis, it's and I do not demean the kind of sacrifices they have to make for their compulsions, or their limitations. But see, we are earning to eat food. I mean, we are earning money for bread and butter. That's like the prime purpose. And if bread and butter is something that we're not able to sit down in a pause and enjoy or savor, then why are we earning? So, being able to sit and enjoy our food, no matter how simple it is, should be a very prime indicator of how well our life is going on. Okay, you feel overwhelmed a lot of times. You get this is a very important indicator. Another person is actually saying a right thing, but it's triggering something inside you, and you get irked up or irritated constantly. So if even if people are telling you correct things, please do this, don't forget this, do remember, or they're trying to remind you with their best intentions, you really feel very annoyed and irritated, and you pick up a fight with them, or you argue, or you get angry. You take out your frustrations on others for no fault of theirs. And I think we have experienced it at certain times in our life when we have probably been overwhelmed. We do not have the sense to discern what is right and what is wrong. And we just vent out our anger. I have done that a couple of times. You are frequently dropping or breaking things. This is also an important indicator. Like if you have cutlery or crockery or plates at home, or you pick up things and you're not able to hold them. These are all signs that the universe might be telling you to slow down. So this is how I would like to summarize it for you. So burnout is nature's way of telling you that you have been going through things in an unconscious manner. You have been just recklessly going on pursuit of things, accumulating things, just pursuing goals with no intent or with no deep sense of consciousness. It's a reminder from the universe that you need to take a pause, you need to slow down, and you need to revisit what you're doing, and henceforth approach it with a little more grace. Okay, so this is how I take burnout, as a sign to encourage us to slow down. Now, here is a small background that I'd like to share with you. Because our pre modern society was primarily agricultural. So, the seasons would determine the lifestyle and livelihood of people, right? So, when seasons changed, they indicated how people would be adapting their lifestyles. So, for instance, during spring, summer, and early autumn, because you get sunlight and life was more active, and people would spend their time outdoors gathering or tending to animals, and then gradually when agriculture was discovered, then moving into planting and gardening and tending to the soil, etc. And winter was a time when activities and pace slowed down because the sun was not as prominent as the other seasons. And which is why I believe that this is the perfect weather and season and time for me to remind you of the value and importance of slowing down. This is the most beautiful season when you can embrace this philosophy, if it makes sense to you. So, what would people do during the winters? Families would gather around the fire and just sit down and have conversations. They would relax, tell stories, etc. I remember my father telling me that when he was small, my grandfather in his village would sit down below a tree, and during winters all the men and women would gather around in a circle. Bonfire is popular and a very very cool thing now, but villagers have their own typical style of rustic bonfire which has been going on for ages, and they would have a fire in the center, and people would warm themselves and comfort themselves. But it was not just the fire that would be comforting and warming them, it was also the conversation, the spirit of being together, the feeling of just slowing down and savoring that particular moment without the anxiety or hustle of what are we going to do ahead. Oh my god, we're wasting our time. Oh, how can we sit here right now, we have so much to do, right? Okay, so we'll be talking about these things ahead, but this was a small background which I felt and this is something all of you know. It's a good reminder to once again reflect on this. So what's the meaning of slowing down? I found this very beautiful um, expansion of the philosophy that I want to share with you. So when we slow down, we are actually optimizing for quality over quantity. Okay, so doing things in a nice manner, in a correct manner, instead of doing more things. I'm not condemning or criticizing or naming a particular brand, but very recently I saw an advertisement of a children's clothing product, like an apparel product, which had lots of children sitting together and telling one another, hey, my mother brought 10 new t shirts for me. Hey, that's nothing. The other child is saying, my mother brought 15 new woolens for me. And then there's another kid who's saying, hey, that is nothing. My mother got 20 sets for my younger brother. Okay, and this just goes on, and the brand is promoting itself, which is fine. It must be serving the brand really well. But the idea that it gives to me is more is good. It reinstills the belief that unless you have more, you're not good enough, you don't have good enough. And imagine if a small child of that age, 6 or 7 years, is watching it. The child is really feeling, hey, my mother is not getting me 5 or 10 or 15 sweaters and stuffs like that, I have just one or two, which means it's not good for me, right? So when we slow down, we actually look at what we have. We question, is it something that I really need? Is it making sense to me? Is there someone else who might need it more than me? Decluttering in all those aspects. So slow down is a philosophy where all of these things can become a small part. Okay, sustainability of effort. Again, I was talking about clothing and apparel and fashion, and where we are living in a world where if a celebrity actor or actress wears one piece of garment twice, they become they become an object of mockery by media persons, etc. Hey, they don't have clothes to wear, etc. All of that. But I am gradually learning that sustainability around fashion and clothing and garment, um, and sustainability around any act that we are doing is very valuable. It's good for the planet, and which is why it's really very good for us. So being more mindful and intentional around how my own footprint is. We're talking about carbon footprint, we're talking about a lot of climate change and all of that. But I feel as human beings, as a soul, as an entity, we have a certain footprint. We are creating impressions with each of our act. So when we segregate, clutter or garbage, and we're more mindful around those actions, I think we should be really very mindful around each of the aspects that we're doing every day in our life. That's what slow down the philosophy teaches us. It's also optimizing intentionality over reactivity. So here comes our behavior, our emotions. Often somebody says something to us and we are uh, very tempted to react or retaliate in that matter, for that matter. So being more intentional and deciding that perhaps in this situation being quiet is a more wise is a wiser thing to do than reacting or picking a fight and encouraging that vicious circle. That also is a part of slowing down, and being very having a strong mindfulness around attachment. you know so you might have seen families and cultures and people who might have said, this is how we do it in our home, this is how the men are the men in our home do not pick their glass of water and put it in the sink, and this has happened for generations, and this is how we do it. Okay. um so fine, it might have served the family well, but I feel instilling rigid behavior patterns that might be comfortable for one particular type, like for men it's really very comfortable, but it might be giving discomfort to another person. Somebody else has to definitely pick up that glass and put it back to the sink, right? So being overly attached to our belief systems, our ideology, and all of this is also very harmful. So realizing this and being more open and more embracing of others' perspectives as well, being more empathetic of how my actions are impacting the other person. All of this is a part of slowing down. Okay. Now, why is it difficult to slow down? Why do we find it difficult? Okay. So, here, first of all, I would like to say that since we are small children, teachers really glorify children who are fast, who've completed their exams fast, and teacher, I'm done. And they go, and teacher would pat the child on the back, right? And a child who is not able to write with that speed is constantly belittled. Are you a snail? And all of those, there'll be different kinds of labels. So there's a lot of judgment around people who are slow intellectually, and slow in responding or slow to perform certain tasks. And this makes other people also, fear that, oh, I do not want to be perceived like that. So they try, or they overperform themselves, they outperform themselves. Consumerism, of course, look at the advertisements. There is a huge rush of, you have to be a go-getter. If you do not have this car, you are not surviving, you're not successful. If you don't have this, if you don't have so many likes on your feed, on your posts, something is wrong. All of that fast paced consumerism that teaches more is better. If you have less, probably you're very poor, or you look down upon. So these are certain things that make it difficult for us to slow down. FOMO, I think a lot of you are familiar. FOMO is acronym for fear of missing out. And social media promotes FOMO a lot, you know. So if they make you believe that if you're not using this product, if you're not doing this, if you're not going to this party, you are missing out. You're not cool like everybody else, you know. So the whole town is going to this on 31st night. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? You know, those kind of taglines really make you feel you're missing out. Also, I think I would like to remind you of whereas hustle is valuable and it serves a purpose at different age, um, different timelines, you know, for a student who's performing at a stage, or who's appearing for their board exams. Okay, so hustle might be important at different times of life, but there is too much glorification of hustle. You know, sleep just 2 hours or 3 hours a day and you have to win, you have to get, you know, what somebody is doing at 50 years of age, you have to achieve it at 20 years of age. But that kind, I think it's very dangerous. What's the harm if somebody is achieving something at 30 years of age or 40 years of age? If other aspects of their life are doing really well, I am growing to learn this. I also belong to this glorification of hustle culture. I have to achieve this by this age, etc. But few years, just recently, I have started to realize that, you know, if all the aspects of our life are going well, that is a more desirable goal to achieve, rather than have attaining that one particular goal through hustle that I have wanted to, and losing out on my physical health, losing out on relationships and parenting and family and all the other aspects. So an overall accomplishment around different aspects of our life is important. Also, when you read a lot of literature, you might find that there is a certain distinction between mediocrity and superiority. You'll find this word a lot. And earlier, I admit, I used to enjoy this a lot. You know, that feeling of you belonging to a superior, cult or class of intellect or artists or celebrities, etc. And the mediocrity is a different kind of breed. I think this kind of segregation is not healthy. And now I have grown to believe and learn that these are just labels that we have created for our marketing gimmicks or purpose. But we're all created by the same creator, and we will return to the same source. So all of these are just labels serving certain purpose. So this mediocrity, superiority, all of these kind of labelings and glorification of speed, all of these things make it really difficult for us to slow down even if we want to, right? I hope this is resonating with you so far. Okay. Yeah, so again, this is just summarizing that slowing down is not living faster but living better, by intentionally placing what we value the most and living in self awareness and making more conscious decisions that are not just good for our own selves but good for the environment, the society, the planet, and for the world at large. Now, what happens if we do not slow down? Okay. Um, I have experienced this. Like, remember, I told that I felt a sense of overwhelm at a certain time. So, when you are at that stage, what happens is, imagine you are already overwhelmed, you're not planning enough, you've not taken your breaks, and your small little child comes and shows, Mama, you know, I made this beautiful drawing. Or they came and sang a song that they learned in school, but you're not available. You have zoned out of that moment, so you miss out on appreciating that precious moment. Okay, so someone valuable or important has shared a very good news, but you're not there. You're not available to savor or enjoy or congratulate them. When you do not slow down, you feel disconnected from everyone and everything. And I have felt that we become very self-centric when we do not slow down, and we lack being grateful, we lack empathy for other people, and we lack generosity, I think it's not a good bargain to have, losing out on these qualities. We invite overwhelm, fatigue, and burnout, terms that I've been using since the start, and especially impacting our sleep and eating habits, which have long-term consequences on our overall health. Okay. Now what so these are some negativities that, you know, happen when we do not slow down. And what happens if we actually consciously, actively slow down on a regular basis? And winter is a good time. This is a good season for us to intentionally practice slowing down. So, what are the benefits that we can experience? You find a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose when you slow down and reflect and look at your goals and your activities and actions and what you're doing. You can really identify what are your goals, what are your values, what aligns with you, what does not work with you, and all of those. Okay, you experience being in the present moment more. You make more conscious decisions, and decisions that are not just rash or impulsive. You act very responsibly for your own well-being and for other people as well. You feel more grateful, like I mentioned earlier. You feel more aligned with your goals. You eat more consciously, more mindfully. You get to sleep better. And I think this is one of the most beautiful benefits of slowing down. You nurture your relationships more consciously. And by relationships, I mean, family, children, partner, and extended, family members, or our mentors, our friend circle. We intentionally build and nurture and spend more time with those people. And you get an opportunity to consider different approaches for attempting a certain, aspect. So you're not very rigid on this is how we have to do it. Okay. So here I'm also reminded to share that when we do not slow down, there are certain reasons that we already discussed earlier. People pleasing and not saying no is also a very important um, practice that we do not follow, that makes us attain a state of burnout. So wanting to appear very nice to everyone, and people coming up with lots of different projects, and whether we want to do it or not, but just saying okay, yes, I will do. So trying to seem nice to everyone, these are all things that eventually lead to burnout. Okay, so here I have a small toolkit for you. And by toolkit, I mean these are lots of different suggestions. And whatever works or resonates with you, please try and pick that up and practice that for at least 21 days or a month for its benefit to, or to offer to you. So, I mean, you have to slow down and you actually have to wait patiently for it to work. So the first thing I feel is when we calibrate our routine, when we have our morning and our bedtime routine at place, those 2 points of calibration are really, great points for us to organize our life around when we want to slow down. So having a morning routine means when we wake up in the morning, of if we are working outside or if we have demands, sending children to school, etc., then it's very overwhelming. So usually what happens, we step out of our bed and we rush to get ready and we step out in the world. So I have really experienced this, that before we step out on the world, in the world, early in the morning, if we can give our own selves 30 to 50 to 60 minutes of, it might seem like a luxury, but if we curate it intentionally, it is achievable. So having a dedicated half an hour or 1 hour in the morning solely to our own selves before the world is waking up is a great practice. Now, what do you do at that time? Do anything that nurtures you or that makes you feel more joyful. So you can read here, you can personalize your own morning routine, you can journal, you can practice a meditation, you can do yoga, you can go out in the nature and take a walk. So anything that works for you, right? And try and see different techniques and practices. Whatever resonates with your, works with you, embrace that. Make it a part of your morning routine. So similarly, if you want to wake up early in the morning, you have to end your day earlier, right? So you have to sleep earlier the night before, right? So you need to have a winding down kind of a routine starting your evening. So when it's sunset, slowing down your eating pattern, unplugging from digital devices, not watching too much of sensational movies or, web series, reading something that calms your senses, probably reading some spiritual book, journaling, spending time with your family members, talking to people in real and being there present, not chatting or not using your digital devices. So I think these are nice. Book reading with your child, telling stories, all of these are good bedtime routines. Also, knowing what matters to you the most, I think I would really like if you can pause, if you can sit down later at a time when it's convenient to you and ask yourself what matters the most to you know and this reflection can help you identify your values or identify the areas or aspects that matter the most to you. Okay, and there is no one right answer for anyone. Different people from different age groups and different stages in their life will have different things that matter the most to them. Okay, so at one time perhaps getting a certain degree mattered the most to me, but at another time or at the present time my family matters the most to me. So, knowing that and then intentionally using our time and our space, our energy, and our money around it, okay, is so now what I do is, now that I know that my family is most important to me, if I have any assignments or if I have any projects coming ahead, I like to tally it with, does this resonate with, will it affect my family in a positive or a negative way? So if it nourishes my family, or if it's good for our well-being, I take it up. And if it kind of hinders with our goals, then I put it on a halt. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say know what matters to you the most and cultivate your time and space and energy and practices around that. Also, practicing gratitude. I think gratitude is a game changer, and not many of us practice it enough. We often feel entitled towards a lot of things that we get. But I feel that having a sense of thankfulness towards everything that we have in life is works like a magnet. And the more grateful we are, the more God blesses all those aspects that we are grateful for. It's incredible. So practicing gratitude helps you slow down. Okay, eating slowly and mindfully. Now, this is another valuable practice that can be doable at home. At least one meal in a day, it is possible to, if you're cooking from the scratch. So being there, being present in that moment, intentionally deciding or knowing what would I like to cook. Also, when you're peeling the vegetables or chopping or, so feeling the texture of that vegetable or peas or seeds, whatever you're working with, and just enjoying the miracle of nature. God has created such amazing, grains and cereals and food for us, and enjoying while you're cooking it, and then sitting with your family and savoring that, mindfully. So I think eating slowly and mindfully is an amazing practice that all of us should try. Another valuable tip here is doing one task at a time. In fact, at one point of time in my life, I learned that multitasking is very, very important. So while you're doing one thing, get too many things done simultaneously, and that's a great accomplishment. Okay, and but I feel that when you're multitasking, you're not putting your heart and soul into each of those activities, and sometimes you might goof up, or multitasking might work for some aspects or some works, But doing one particular task at one particular time when you want to slow down is really valuable, you know. So you're not focusing on the number of things that you've accomplished, but you're focusing on that whole practice, that whole ritual that you have done, that whole task that you've been working on. Also, I think I hear a lot of kids saying, you know, I'm getting bored, and you know, so what to do? So parents feel it's their responsibility to keep giving something to engage their children. But as an artist, I really vouch for this, that boredom is really very good for one's creativity, right? And we're not letting our children get bored a lot these days. We're constantly bombarding them with something or the other to do. And boredom is beautiful for one's imaginations. You know, all the authors of today have been bored children of yesterday, you know, and they came up with such vivid imagery and imagination of butterflies and all those things. So let your child be bored, and also let yourself be bored as well. Sometimes boredom can be overwhelming. You know, I really don't know what to do. I will be sitting with my own self. But if you want to slow down, intentionally make room for boredom and not do anything just for the sake of it. Okay, don't touch that phone just for the sake of you know, doing something and all of that. Okay. And also cultivating patience deliberately. You go to the airport and you see how everyone is rushing, you know, and actually the luggage will come on the conveyor belt at the same time, and we will not be able to leave the airport if we have luggage unless we pick it. So on the plane, no matter how fast you step out of the plane, it really doesn't matter, right? So letting someone else go first is not as harmful as we feel it to be. Everybody's turn will come, right? So let us um, constantly find opportunities and experiences where we cultivate being more patient on an intentional basis. So, you know, letting someone else go in the line is just one example, but you can find a lot of examples where you learn patience. I think being with small children, playing with children teaches a lot of patience. Sitting with the elderly also teaches us a lot of patience, you know. So I really recommend and encourage us being around people of different age groups. It teaches us so much, you know, of patience and wisdom and beauty of life, right? Also practicing silence. I think a lot of us feel overwhelmed being silent, you know. So there's always a temptation of chattering and talking. And I'm not judging, or I'm not saying this is bad, but I'm just wanting um, to encourage that it's not all, and I have learned it from some of my loved friends, it's not always important to be talking all the time. And it's valuable to sometimes just sit, just not make any small talk, and um, just listen to the sounds of nature, probably, you know, birds outside, the traffic outside, all of that. Also using our notifications mindfully. I recommend, if your office hours are over, do not let the phone or laptop notifications affect or disturb you as much. I use my notifications very mindfully. I keep my phone on silent often, and I like to check it when I want to check it. Okay, if I'm not at work. So you can have your own practices around how you would like to use your gadgets and notifications. You don't need to look at your gadget every time it's ringing, or unless it's not urgent. It's just a message, right? So you can have scheduled time to check your messages or mails or to respond. Okay. Also, I already talked about this, saying no to too many commitments. Okay. Uh, Again, coming to point number two, knowing what matters to you. Okay, so knowing your priorities, so you can have two or three priorities in our life. Okay, and having your commitments or goals or aspects or tasks around those, instead of doing too many random things mindlessly. Okay. Embracing sustainable fashion, so embracing clothing that aligns with how you like, how you feel, um, you know, and repeat and using it repeatedly, and not being shamed around it, not feeling how people would perceive when how you're dressing up. Traveling more mindfully. Here, I mean, this is a reminder for us to make use of plastic bottles, randomly throwing trash here and there. I really love, having home cooked meals or carrying fruits or things. If you can plan better, you can create lesser wastage, and you can have a more conscious, more mindful, more sustainable kind of experience when you're traveling. Okay, so these are certain tips and strategies that you can make use of, whatever resonates or works with you. And elaborating a bit on this, I came across this point, and this term was called everyday deceleration. Acceleration is speeding up, right? So deceleration is slowing down. So there are certain moments of deceleration or pauses. And remember your grandmother and see how she used to do things. And you'll find lots of examples of how, there were pauses in the day. So, cooking and baking, reading a book, knitting, attending to garden or plants, doing something creative. All of these are beautiful moments that can give you pauses in your day. So you can pick up anything that you like, writing a letter to someone with your hand, making a card, doing some art, taking a warm bath, uh, meditating, walking out in nature, playing with a child. These are all moments that can allow you to take small pauses. Mm. As we close, there is a small reflection. Whenever you're doing something, just ask yourself, is it really necessary? Okay. Is it something that I love? Does it add value to my life? Okay. So if the answers are yes to each of these, then you can go ahead and do it. And if the answer is not yes, then explore other areas. Why am I doing it? What is my compulsion? As does someone have a trigger on my head and forcing me to do it? Like different kinds of compulsion that might propel you to do a certain task. Okay, that was uh, a lame joke. Okay, so this was another beautiful piece that I discovered and I wanted to share with you. So more of this and less of that when we have a slower life. So more of space and less of stuff, more of connection and less of comparison, more of learning and less of judging, more of mindfulness and less of mindlessness, more of love and less of likes, more of friendship and less of followers, more of living and less of merely existing, and more of you and less of what everyone else is doing. Okay, and to close down, I have a very beautiful Zen haiku that I read years ago, which shows us that nature does not hustle, nature does not hurry, and yet everything is accomplished. But this haiku says it more beautifully. It says, sitting silently, doing nothing, spring comes and the grass grows by itself. So nature has a beautiful way of attaining its goals, right from the sapling to the output, you know and I don't know what we are wanting to achieve with all of this hustle and all of that, but whenever possible, let's take this as a beautiful reminder that it's sometimes valuable to do nothing and sit silent and slow down and smell the roses that we have. And so that was from me. Over to you, Arunima. Thank you for listening so beautifully and patiently.
Thank you so much, Richa. It was a beautiful session, beautiful and relaxing, I guess. And one of the lines that you mentioned, I really liked it. Slowing down is about living better. I really like that. So thanks a lot. Thanks for sparing your valuable time with us. Uh, Participants, if anyone wants to share something, if anyone has a question, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
It is a wonderful talk and fascinating the way Richa has always been presenting her various subjects. And it goes to the core of the heart and very practical and implementable suggestions in most simple languages. It's very fascinating. Thank you very much, Richa Madam. Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wants to share something or has a question? Okay, Dr. Bijlani, I request you to share your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Richa, for a talk that was particularly relevant to people my age and my type. Because people at my age who continue to be very active and find it difficult to slow down do it for a reason. Because when you find that the time left in life is very little and you think that you have a lot to do, it becomes difficult to slow down. But at the same time, what helps in slowing down, in spite of that, is the fact that I may feel that there's a lot to do, but even if I don't do that, it will not make much difference to the world. Rather, it will make no difference to the world at all whatsoever. So it's good to remember that, and that helps one slow down. Another point that you made in the beginning was that we just have to take a cue from what our ancestors did. And if one goes by that, then we had clear cut phases the brahmacharya, grihastha, and vanaprastha and sannyas. And it was expected that in brahmacharya and grihastha, you are young, and at the same time, there is a lot that you should do, either to educate yourself or to take care of the family. And particularly in grihastha, I mean, it was expected and that you will be very busy. And these days also, we know that it is one has to be busy because a person belongs at that stage to what is called the sandwich generation. You are sandwiched between two generations, the children whom you have to take care of and your parents whom also you have to take care of. So as young people in grihastha, you are sandwiched between the two. But then vanaprastha and sannyas were for not just turning more towards the divine, but also for slowing down. Then one might say that, well, what about people like me who refuse to slow down? uh, all what they can do is to not take their work too serious so seriously that they get under stress because of all that remains to be done, because all that remains to be done may not get done, and then one is quite happy with it. And that applies not only to work but also to other things. If I'm fond of reading, uh, I know quite well that there are so many books in the world, very good books worth reading, which I would enjoy reading very much, but I'm quite content to die without reading them. Unless I take that attitude, I'll be under stress even for not being able to read all the books that I have and all the books that I could possibly read. So, but anyway, coming back to the point of ancestors slowing down at a certain age, which was considered normal, in relation to that, I mean, there are a few things which apply, and that is that we have a lot of flexibility also built into our ancient systems. Indian culture has sort of built in a lot of flexibility, which means that still more flexibility, if it suits, one can go beyond what is prescribed. And that is covered by basically three things. One is swabhava, that is each person's temperament and basic makeup is different. Swadharma, that is in particular set of circumstances, what the person should be doing can be different. So that is what dictates what the person does. And the third is the concept of yoga dharma. That is the idea of what is right and wrong and way to live changes with the era, the period in history. And certainly, we are living in times which are totally unprecedented. If anyone who lived in the world even 50 years ago, not even 100, just 50 years ago, were to once again come back to this world, he may find that it has changed beyond recognition, because he left at a time when there was, leave aside artificial intelligence, we did not even have much of an extensive use of computers. Computers had just begun to be used. There was no internet, there were no smartphones. So the world has changed enormously. And therefore, each new era brings in a different set of necessities which one has to live. But then some perennial truths always apply, and slowing down is one of them. But it can make it more difficult to slow down during certain periods. And then one has to find other ways of doing it the way you have prescribed today, which applies to modern world. And that is why there is a way of always recasting ancient wisdom in terms of the prevailing circumstances now. One thing that you mentioned also was about children, that we should leave children a time to get bored. Now, boredom, I'm not sure if it's a very desirable thing. Perhaps a better thing would be idleness, because there's a difference between the two. Because boredom is a negative feeling. The child is feeling that this is a time during which not only I'm idle, but I'm also feeling very uncomfortable. So we have to see how to make children comfortable during that period of apparent idleness when there's nothing very specific to do. And one thing could be, of course, to let the child indulge in hobbies, which will avoid boredom. At the same time, nothing very specific to be done. The child can do what the child really loves doing. Another thing could be, at a certain age, meditation, which means that you can, without having anything to do, without having anything at your disposal, not even a book, not even a toy, not even a companion, what is it that you can still do? And I don't know what that right age would be, but recently I heard somewhere in some speakers in a conference saying that the Dalai Lama has said that if you teach 8-year-old children how to meditate, the violence in the world will go down a lot. Now, seems to be a little far-fetched connection. And also, I'm not the one for simplistic solutions. Also looks a very simplistic solutions. Uh, but all the same, these great people like the Dalai Lama, when they say something and build up this type of a connection, have something deep, have a deep insight about it. Because they can see not just meditation by an 8-year-old as as a simple technique to be taught to the child, but they see more of it as an attitude to be built into the child, and also something which will have a lifelong effect. The child will get accustomed to living that way, and that will become normal and second nature to the child. And the children who grow up like that are less likely to be violent. And that's why I said that if you teach every 8-year-old child today how to meditate, violence in the world come down dramatically after 50 years. That also is said, which will take 50 years to do it. But then you will have a new type of generation growing up. So that's again something which occurred to me while you were talking about boredom, because that is one thing the child can certainly learn, irrespective of uh, anything else that the child uh, may do, like hobbies or uh, some other creative activity. And then when the child meditates, that is the time when the child is also likely to get those creative ideas. Because there is a normal suspension of the normal chaotic activity of the mind, and that is the best time when perhaps this type of ideas would come. So these were some of the thoughts that crossed my mind while I was listening to you. Thank you again for stimulating so much thought, even in a person at my age. And so, yes, certainly slowing down is important, because the heavens are not falling, the world is not coming to an end, the work will never end, and no matter how hard we work throughout life, the in tray will not be empty when we leave this world. So thank you again, and we hope to have you again for with another motivating talk.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again, Richa, for the beautiful session. I thank the participants as well for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.